Hey, team players, and welcome to Local Football Flavor, breaking down fantasy. And if you're looking for just cupcake going along with why you should love this guy and whatever, this isn't the place. We're going to tell you the way it really is because we create winners here, and part of that is saying do not avoid, and we give you the whys rather than just saying, oh, I don't like them. We're actually going to break this down to you in detail as we have been in every episode before. This is ESPN's current rankings for the 15th round in a 10-person league, PPR settings. And this is being recorded during June, and this is ESPN's list for June. And obviously, we will update these as we go on and bouncing around other companies as well. But as we look at the 15th round here, Bob, we saw the first kicker went off the board last round, and in this round, we get our first defense. I want to just start with a general thought that I was saying before. I believe the Cincinnati Bengals are going to have the absolute best offense in the NFL this year because they are playing an incredibly soft schedule. And as a result, I like their kicker. That's just a starting point. I don't know if I want to take him in the 15th round, but I know when it comes time around the ranking kickers, the Bengals kicker is going to get some love for me. But as I look overall, I do not like Dawson Knox this year at all. But it's not because they drafted a tight end. Tight ends in the NFL take longer to develop than wide receivers. And I don't like rookie wide receivers as it is. The reason I don't like Dawson Knox is he's inconsistent.
Dawson Knox.
I don't like him. He's inconsistent. He's more inconsistent than your run-of-the-mill tight ends are anyway. I mean, most tight ends, you're looking for 5 catches, 50 yards, call it a day. Knox is very rarely giving it to you there, and because he is not the same type of receiver as the other ones up there in Buffalo, he tends to get lost in the shuffle. He hasn't even taken over that high volume, just give me the first down like Renfro would type in Buffalo. Buffalo doesn't have that type on their team now. That the guy who hated on COVID and left, Beasley, Beasley left.
I think it's kind of a moot point to talk about Dawson Knox, especially because the past 2 seasons, you're saying that it's been fairly inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
He has been fairly consistent the last 2 seasons. Each of the last 2 seasons, he's accumulated like 40-some receptions, 500 yards, and a couple of touchdowns in there.
Which is below par. It's below the line.
It is below par, and it's why he's so low.
Yeah.
It's why he's in this group of players. Dawson Knox, in my mind, should not even be within, on your radar at
I don't
all.
think so at all. Yeah. He's a name. That's why he's on people's radar. He's been drafted before.
The amount of receptions that he gets, it was only 48 last year on 65 targets, which, the red zone targets were there for a little while. But if I'm being serious, you should have already gotten your tight end by now. These tight ends here are strictly depth pieces, with the exception of potentially Hayden Hurst. And I would even say Juwan Johnson, because we don't know what's going to happen in New Orleans. We just don't know what that situation is going to look like.
Well, we know they're getting the ball to Olave a lot.
Yeah, it could turn out that Juwan Johnson turns out to be a beast. He has the talent to do that.
Certainly does.
He was targeted inside the 20 last year 11 times. For 73 yards.
See, Paul,
64% out of the targets that tight ends get there. He had them. But it's just not something I want to.
But if you could tell me I can walk out and my first tight end is either Juwan Johnson or Gesicki, who I believe is going to be the leading target getter in New England, I'm okay with that in the 15th round.
Well,
I love that.
So Juwan Johnson had 7 touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
Dawson Knox had 6 or 7 touchdowns. Mike Gesicki.
But Johnson has upside. I know Knox is going down.
Right. And Hayden Hurst, I think, has similar upside. I think that a quarterback, I think that his
rookies go tight ends
on him. So, pardon me. The realistic thing here, though, is that we're looking at now the 13th, 14th, 15th.
This is the 15th round.
16th best tight ends. If you haven't gotten one right now, that means that another player has gotten 2, which probably means that somebody may have taken Kelsey and Andrews together. Somebody may have taken Hawkinson and Kittle together, hoping to pair them both if it's a flex league plus that to get the best talent on the board. I think these are guys that are going to sit on the waiver wire on a week-to-week basis. These are guys that you probably aren't drafting, with the exception of maybe the name of Dawson Knox getting drafted or the name of Gesicki getting drafted. And these are guys that you're going to stream on a week-to-week basis.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely in streaming world, yeah.
If you haven't had the opportunity to take a really good tight end, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with Juwan Johnson on a week-to-week basis. You might get Gesicki's 3-touchdown blow-up. You might get Hayden Hurst with 100 yards. You could get Dawson Knox with his touchdown. I think all those tight ends are very much streamable. You're not drafting them. They're going to stay there. Out of this group of players, the only player that is, Evan McPherson had a down year last year, 136 points out of him. That's 30-point difference between him and Tucker. So if he's going to be the second best kicker this year, he's going to have to.
I'm just saying, just because they're going to score a billion points.
I like the reliability of Adam Thielen for Carolina's quarterback. I think that there's a good chance that Adam Thielen puts up a decent year before he goes out in glory.
Yeah, he has to be their leading dog down there.
He has to be. I think Elijah Moore situation has changed. So if you do want to take a chance on Elijah Moore,
I think Elijah Moore's your highest upside out of this group because
you have the chance there. But everybody else here, I'm sitting and I'm saying, I'm not even really thinking about any of these players.
Well, yeah. So I am jumping out of my page to get Elijah Moore out of this group here, and the reason is it's coming down to who's the number 2 legitimate option in Cleveland, and I believe Elijah Moore is significantly better than the Donovan's Peoples-Jones. And when we look at that, I want to go with the number 2 on a team that wants to throw the ball a whole lot more. And even if they don't, they're going 3 receiver sets. They're going to lead the league at 11 personnel when it's all said and done. So they only have 1 tight end out there. Elijah Moore's going to be on the field a ton. You're obviously going to be putting your coverage on Cooper. Elijah Moore, to me, I think is the potential guy who could go off. Again, it all depends on how you feel about Watson. If you think Watson's going to be a dud, don't do it.
I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is a clear number 2 there.
Elijah Moore's a better football player than Donovan Peoples-Jones.
I think that he's the clear number 2 there, so I'm staying away from Elijah Moore. Nico Collins' situation, is he the top dog in that Texans wide receiver room? By default?
He's certainly the tallest dog.
Yes. You look at it and you say Chuba Hubbard, there's nothing really that screams to me that I have to take him because Miles Sanders is the guy there. If you want to take Chuba, he hasn't really, when he has been put into the place, he hasn't really set the world on fire. Donta Foreman did. He didn't. Yeah. So I think Chuba at this ranking is.
I think Chuba has a chance of being not on the team.
I think it's an afterthought. So out of this list, without further ado, because there's really much else to say about these players here, 49ers defense is my number 1 out of this list.
Okay.
Followed directly by Adam Thielen. Then you have the potential of Elijah Moore. So 49ers, Thielen, Elijah Moore. That's how I would rank them there. Then I'd go Evan McPherson, Nico Collins, then the tight ends, and then Chuba. Because I think all these tight ends provide you the same, with the higher upside being Juwan Johnson. And, Mike Gesicki has that chance to get those 3 touchdowns for you 1 week and then do nothing else the rest of the year. So if you smack it on his 3-touchdown week, you're going to be golden. But
that was when he was in Miami, though. See, I disagree with you about just dismissing this group of tight ends.
I'm not dismissing it for talent. I'm dismissing it because you should already have one.
Oh no, see, I don't agree with that philosophy at all. I believe that this is where you sit on your tight ends until 15 or 16. If you're in a 20-round league, final 25% is when I start looking at tight ends.
Listen, in a 10-person league, we've named
tons of names, which means they're not going to take anymore. We're basically at a spot where tight end in my draft, knowing that probably 8 other people have taken their tight end, there's not going to be demand for them. Because these are streamers for people's perspective.
I'm going to pull up a list of tight ends, and this is a good discussion to have because mainly all of these players are tight ends here.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to read you names that we've already talked about. Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, Kittle, all going to be rostered.
Yeah.
They're all going to be rostered. Pitts is going to be rostered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Might not be the best option for people. He's going to be rostered. Goddard's going to be rostered from Philly. Waller's going to be rostered from.
See, after you said those first four, I don't want to waste the pick. I'd rather have another running back.
This tier 2 is where you're going to say, do I want to take a tight end now? There's going to be people out there that eventually these tight ends are going to go.
Yes.
And that's already,
they're all going to go before I pick.
But listen, those are already 10. They're out of the rest of these tight ends that are left. And this is why I say this is out of a 10-team league. Out of a 10-team league, you may at most have 15 total tight ends taken. Yeah. And when I say that, you're then, if you're waiting this long for a tight end in the pool, and you've already went through and you've taken all your guys, then it is very realistic that when you're drafting and say you pick a tight end in this round, in the 15th round, there's a realistic opportunity that you're getting Higbee, Johnson, Gesicki, maybe Taysom Hill, Zach Ertz, all of that in this regard. But why I'm saying is you should already have one is that if you don't have one, then you're going to have the opportunity to take anybody you want from 10 to whenever. Because nobody's going to take a backup tight end other than the people that already took those tight ends off the top. So,
well, that's my point. When I sit here,
would you rather? What I'm saying is, would you rather deal with your streaming options in Mike Gesicki? I'm saying that Mike Gesicki has talent.
See, I don't think here's my thing.
But I don't think
I think Hurst is a streaming option this year. I believe Juwan Johnson and Mike Gesicki are going to be better than streaming options, and you're not going to cut them this year. Those are two guys that I believe that whoever takes them, especially if you get them this late, you're just going to ride them all year. Obviously you're not going to blow up the world, but Gesicki has a very good chance of being either number 1 or number 2 on that team in targets. And in a PPR league, that's everything. Juwan Johnson, giving his frame and his box out ability, which as much as I love Olave does not have, makes himself an amazing red zone opportunity, especially if you're in my camp and you believe Mike Thomas is never playing successful football ever again. So you look at the other receivers in New Orleans, Snead's an over-the-top speed guy. He doesn't do technical underneath routes. Shade, yeah, my bad. But that's why I believe both Gesicki and Juwan Johnson should have gone well before they are. They are underneath everyone's radar, and I would take them 1 and 2 out of this group.
I get with that, and I will get with that for the sheer reason that we have listed. There has been a lot of players within these rankings that
we just don't want to touch.
I wouldn't even touch, and so by default, those players would rise up.
Yeah,
but there's a guy coming up soon. There's actually a couple guys coming up soon.
Have we said Freiermuth yet?
I don't believe so.
I would have taken him above this group too.
There's a couple guys coming up soon in the rankings that you're probably going to take more so than a second tight end. Now, if you have to start 2 tight ends, or if you have to roster.
In general, if you have to start 2 tight ends, you failed at your draft. Period.
No, I'm saying.
Even if they're Kelsey and Kittle.
No. If your league requires that you roster 2 tight ends.
Then you're in a mean league.
There has been leagues like that where you're required to roster a specific number of players. But when you look at this and you say, okay, all of these tight ends, I would rather have the 49ers defense than any one of those tight ends. I would rather have.
See, I know the Niners is my first defense. I don't. But
I'm saying this whole list is players that I'm not even thinking about.
See, I think this is where we start getting the sneaky value where people end up getting some things that are like, oh, this was nice. I do like I said, I think Gesicki is my first person I take off this, and Johnson's my second, and I like that. I like that possibility of it. I am on the team where I believe Elijah Moore is a better player than Donovan's people zones, and I think that Elijah Moore is going to give himself a decent season here. Not to say world beating, but there's going to be weeks where I'm going to be totally happy with him as my number 3 receiver or as a flex option. So I got Elijah Moore as my 3 spot. Again, I don't have the Niners as my number 1 defense, but they would be 4th out of this group. because you are right. No one on that team can get the ball to Nico Collins. But that being said, Nico Collins, sorry about that, is the number one receiver on his team that's going to be losing a lot. And he is just literally a hard matchup because the dude's tall. He's just super tall and can jump. And we've broken down how ineffective Stroud will be, and I believe he's not going to get the ball out enough. But the one thing that you do is you lob out a deep pass. And that would be an argument for saying, hey, maybe we look at Collins' direction. Because Collins is one of these low volumes, high output guys when he does get the ball thrown his way. It's just, it has not been a good passing game in his tenure down there in Texas. So Nico Collins, I don't think is a complete throw. I had him above a lot of the other guys that we said are just completely undraftable. I don't want to touch.
Oh yeah,
I don't have Nico Collins in the undraftable list. You know, in fact, on this list,
he's just a guy that I'm not thinking about.
He's a guy no one's thinking about. That's why you can steal him.
All of these players are not undraftable. Like there are players that
This is the first round in a while we've had
that are not undraftable, but there are players that I am less likely. Dawson Knox and Chuba Hubbard are on the verge of do not draft me because you are going to be enticed to play me, and I'm going to be very disappointed in playing you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Nico Collins is purely a dart throw wide receiver for flex, second flex on a bye week type of player. Elijah Moore, depending on what happens his situation is unique, I think, out of all of these players.
It depends on how you believe about their depth chart.
I think Adam Thielen could eventually sneak its way into being your starting third wide receiver at some point in time in the season. But going back to this tight end room, these tight ends are also very similar to me in their upward potential. That you're getting a tight end that could shoot for 7 to 8 touchdowns. They could have between 500 to 800 yards. And every one of these players, it's just what situation do you like more? And we clearly don't like Dawson Knox. We like Gesicki and Juwan Johnson more. And we like Hayden Hurst as well. And so when you look at it and you're breaking it down, this is the first round where it has been, yes, I wouldn't – they're not undraftable, but I also wouldn't draft them outside of, say, Thielen, Moore, and Collins, just because you want more depth at wide receiver because those injuries are going to stack up.
The receiver injuries do stack up, and it's a lot harder to get a streamable receiver than it is a streamable tight end. That's just a fact of life by the way leagues get made. But that being said, though, my listing is going to go Johnson, Gesicki. I just flipped them. These two are so 1 and 1A for me. But I would go Johnson, then Gesicki, followed by Moore, Collins, Thielen, Niners D, Hurst, the kicker McPherson, and then Hubbard and Knox. So team players, we appreciate you being with us. If you have not become a team player yet, click subscribe, become part of the team. And we will be doing our best ball leagues as we approach here in August. If you'd like to participate in one of them, leave your information in the comments below and we'll get you here set up.